tinira siya ni
di ko nakita
Manuntitia,
yan.
ni Sasot, ni Balatbay, etc. No? Talagang, so buhay ngayon. Buhay ang negosyo.
Alright, speaking of West Philippine Sea, may bagong billboard si Riza Ontiveros, sinend mo sa akin. Ano yan? Anong drama?
Well, there were several billboards na lumabas ngayon sa EDSA together with Manny Pacquiao, Riza Ontiveros, and other NGOs. Basically, calling for Filipinos to support the frontliners in the West Philippine Sea, fishermen and Coast Guard, and then asking them to join a convoy next month going to BRP Sierra Madre for early Christmas. No? A Christmas convoy bringing gifts to Coast Guards and the soldiers in BRP Sierra Madre. So I think it's going to be an interesting convoy.
Very interesting.
Because they're going to design the boats as Christmas boats with parol, with Christmas lights, with Christmas trees, with Belen, no, with the child in the manger, etc. And then full of media, full of fishermen, full of youth leaders, no, going
interesting.
There. Actually, mahihirapan ng China. Pag hinarangan nila, they will look bad.
Yeah.
Pag pinadaan nila, talo sila. No? So it's a dummy to do strategy.
Very interesting.
Yung billboards, I think part of the campaign. No? Ang problema ay binabanatan.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Binabanatan si Riza for early campaign. Pero he's not running for the midterms.
Wait, Riza just won. Anong kabobohan ng early campaign? Like,
not early campaign,
like,
no?
what, 2028? I mean, this is crazy.
So,
this is crazy.
Pero hindi mo naman kinakailangan ng reason. Hindi mo naman kinakailangan ng logic para mag-bash it. So, yun yung nangyayari.
Well, okay, before we go to the operational military aspect of this, of course, I wrote just a piece on this, on latest satellite imagery that shows significant improvements across EDCA. Let's just stick to this issue of Riza. It's very interesting, no? Na it looks like Riza right now is kinda like Justice Carpio times Pinoy times, you know, so like she's becoming like the embodiment of the West Philippine Sea fight, yung parang Mother Philippines type. I mean, in a sense that you're mainstreaming this, making it like an everyday issue, right? Like parang household issue na yung West Philippine Sea, right? Not in terms of urgency. Of course, it's not the same level of inflation or employment. I understand it, but it's like West Philippine Sea right now is an everyday issue in ways that was unthinkable not long ago, diba? I mean, this is quite interesting. I mean, Ronald, did you ever think in your lifetime that this will happen? And then you also mentioned something very interesting. They're gonna make this very festive geopolitics, right? But it kind of reminds me of those nuns that put flowers in the gun of, you know, during EDSA or during yung mga revolution in Latin America, you know. It's a very interesting way of soft power talaga, no? Soft power but high stakes soft power.
Because how do you confront the biggest navy in the world?
Right.
How do you confront the biggest armed forces in the world? No? Then you use their weight against them. And one thing we are strong with is culture. No? Where religion is also part of culture. So, hindi ko ma-imagine how the Chinese will respond. How the Chinese Navy will respond to a convoy of boats, no? Fishing vessels, na palibot ng parol, palibot ng Christmas lights, may Christmas tree. Some of them will even be bringing Santa Claus, and then gifts, no? Gifts on the bow of the ship. So, di ba? Pag hinarang nila yan, magagalit ang mga Pinoy. Pag pinadaan nila, para naman silang talo dun sa issue ng ayungin ng BRP Sierra Madre, na for now, galit na galit sila. No? Kaya, it's a good tactic. It's a good tactic. No? Tingin ko, it's a win-win situation for those who organize this project.
Right.
Si Riza, from the past 6 years naman talaga, critical siya sa China. Di ba? For the past 6 years, siya yung front line ng criticism against China.
Right.
At nitong nakaraang taon, galit na galit siya sa kanya yung China dahil publicly, she met the president of Taiwan.
Right.
Di ba? naka 5, 6 yata na diplomatic protest in China sa ating
Right.
DFA for that trip alone, no? Ah, Dalawa, siya lang ang practically nag-iisang oposisyon sa Senate.
Right.
At ikatlo, dito sa engagement si Sara, kung si Congresswoman Castro ang front line sa Congress, sa Senate, si Risa yung front line, no? Kaya, in a way, logical yung narrative na ito for her.
Amazing, no? We have all these strong women at the very forefront. No, I'm just so proud to say that as a Filipino man, that I come from a country where it's really our really this Amazon, like really strong women, both
Yeah.
upper house, lower. I'm really proud and I'm really happy with that. As a Filipino, I think that's what makes us really special in so many ways. Um, Now, obviously, aside from doing this public diplomacy, this festive diplomacy, soft power diplomacy. We're doing things that are also not very soft, right? Let's talk about the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. Let's talk about things we're doing on the ground to actually enhance our position. Now, speaking of enhanced, let's talk about the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. There is a new report by the Asian Maritime Transparency Initiative, by the CSIS in Washington, D.C. Of course, for transparency purposes, I do also contribute to them. And I've also written on the latest analysis. So the title is More Than Meets the Eye. So hindi ito pa-cute lang, papogi lang. Marami nangyayari. And if you're China, you have more than just the flotilla and the festive diplomacy to worry about. You have many different sites to worry about. So if you're in China right now, you should be very, very worried if you read this report. So base sa reports na yan, dun sa 9 different bases on EDCA, actually many developments have been happening. The most developed so far is in Basa Air Base sa may Pampanga na hindi ganun kalayo sa Panatag Shoal, at siya po ay nag-receive ng $66.57 million from the United States for the improvement of a whole host of projects, including humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, command and control infrastructure, fuel storage, runaway improvements, and aircraft parking. Of course, that will be very important just in case there'll be contingency and all, magpadala ka ng mga aircrafts. We also see a lot of improvement in Bautista Air Base na malapit naman dyan sa Spratlys or Calayan group of islands. But yung Balabac Island po, nagkakaroon na rin, nearby to, nasa Palawan din to, nagde-develop na rin po tayo ng isang multi-kilometer long runway already. So much is going on. And of course, in the north of the Philippines, there are now conversations also about the U.S. Help building port facilities in Batanes, in addition to the military sites that will be developed dyan sa Cagayan and Isabela. So, whoa, a lot of things are happening. And as I argue, if you are China right now, you have to figure out you have to figure out anong i-prioritize mo dyan, in a sense that, like, like if you press the Philippines here like a balloon, we could expand somewhere else, right? Like, there's so much room for negotiations here. I think this shows if the Philippines takes the initiative, it gives the leverage to us. So now we can talk to the Chinese and say, bubulin mo kami sa West Philippine Sea, lagot kayo sa amin sa Taiwan, tutulungan namin mga Amerikano. Bubulin namin nyo kami dito. So, I think now, again, this is not to praise BBM or anything like that, but in fairness, the Philippines is in quite a sweet spot. No, Ronald? I mean, you and I, of course, as progressives, I don't relish us relying on any foreign powers, and I don't want us to rely on foreign powers, but this cooperation on EDCA is giving us some space, some room for maneuver with China, no? Or even perhaps more than that.
Well, Richard, may distinct location kasi tayo sa lahat ng nangyayari
Yeah.
ito. First, dahil sa history, tayo talaga yung pinakamatagal ang relasyon sa Amerika. Even if we started on an invasion where a huge number of Filipinos were killed, no?
Yeah.
Historically, tayo yung pinakamatagal na naging colony at na naging kaibigan ng US, even if it's not necessarily to our advantage, no? Ikalawa ay kung titignan mo lahat ng surveys, no? Rightly or wrongly, ay very friendly ang mga Filipinos sa US. No? Even during the time of Duterte. No? Even during the height ng ating anti-US struggle during the dictatorship, most Filipinos ay malapit pa rin sa Amerika or very friendly. Especially since there are about more than 5 million Filipinos living in the US. No? Ikatlo, nangyari itong 9-dash line.
Right.
Nangyari itong 10-dash line. Nangyari itong artificial islands.
Right.
Nangyari itong aggression sa ating EEZ. Kaya nagsampa tayo ng kaso. No? We're the only country na nagsampa ng kaso sa UNCLOS and won. No? And won. No? Kaya itong mga variables na ito, I tingin ko, puts us in a very, not only strategic location, but in a very sweet location vis-a-vis the Americans. No? Ngayon, yung pinag-uusapan natin, Edka, is related to 3 different issues. One, yung ating claim sa West Philippine Sea, ating EEZ, na tawag ni Gibo, Secretary Gibo Chodoro, is a creeping invasion.
Right.
No? Ikalawa, the freedom of navigation
Which goes
issue.
back to Ramos, actually. Just to be fair, President Ramos
Yes,
himself
yes.
would raise that term. So it's not original to
Yes.
Gibo. Yeah.
Ikalawa, yung freedom of navigation issue. No? Na not necessarily within our EEZ.
Right.
No? Nasama sa sa gitna ng South China Sea. At ikatlo, yung Taiwan. Taiwan, no? Yung first 5 EDCA, clearly is in relation with our claims sa West Philippine Sea.
Correct.
Diba? Yung sumunod na mga EDCA sites and possibly more is more mixed. No? It's in relation to the 3 issues of our claims in the West Philippine Sea,
Right.
the freedom of navigation in the most or one of the most significant waterways in the world, at
Correct.
ikatlo yung Taiwan. No? Kaya mix yung aking feelings dun sa
Yeah.
bases o yung EDCA bases sa
Paras
Isabela
tayo eh.
at sa Cagayan, no?
Paras
These
tayo. Oh.
landlocked provinces na
Yeah.
clearly mas in relation sa Basa Strait. No? Mas in
Yeah.
relation sa possibility of a war in Taiwan. No? Yun yung doon ako may ambivalence, doon ako may reservations.
Yeah,
Yun yung nangyayari.
Yun nga, pansin ka, actually, bati ako rin medyo ambivalent ako because I'm not gonna vouch. Ganito kasi, Ronald, my sense is, this is not presentism in the sense that thinking, oh, because panahon natin yan, this is a special panahon. But I think it is. I think, Ronald, after more than 100 years of being either America's colony or semi-colony or protectorate, eto na yung chance natin to be a kind of a self-respecting semi-power of our own. An ally can say no and yes, depending on what serves us. And my sense is Marcos can make the most out of this. Whether he can make the most out of this is another question. But I think we are in a sweet spot. Yun yung sense ko talaga ngayon. Na if you now you say you're from the Philippines, we're talked about. I mean, that's the reason why I'm going around and talking, right? Because for 6 years I was just going around explaining what Tatay was saying, right? Like that was my job. Now that antics is gone, I'm really talking about serious stuff. Like what are the operational implications? What can we do in EDCA, strategic stability? So as a Filipino, I feel we're taken more seriously than ever, right? And as a Filipino, I think there's a lot of room for autonomous action and maneuver here. And I think if we play the EDCA card well, meaning, as I call it, Goldilocks, meaning not too much American presence to undermine our sovereignty and provoke China, but also not too small to make it irrelevant, right? If EDCA is just a bunch of skeletal bases here and there, then wala rin silbi yan, diba? So we have to find the right balance, and also right balance of between how can we protect our interests more urgently sa West Philippine Sea while at the same time being prepared for contingencies in Taiwan. That's very difficult. So my question to you, Ronald, is do you think there are enough of smart people out there right now for the president to make the right call? Or in theory, do you think we have enough strategic thinkers aside, of course, of than yours truly? Of
Well,
course.
Richard, kaya maganda itong kahit kasi simula lang, kahit medyo tahimik lang,
Yeah.
maganda itong effort na ginagawa nila Senator Risa Ontiveros, Father Edicio de la Torre, no? Ka-Uper, the Vice Chairman of the Anti-Poverty Commission, itong si Manny Pacquiao, etc. No?
Right.
Itong kanilang convoy, itong Christmas convoy,
Right.
itong kanilang yung ginagawa ni Noel Cabangon to organize a concert
Right.
on the West Philippine Sea, itong mga billboards na nagsulputan, itong plano ng student Alliance, no? SCAP, Student Council Alliance of the Philippines, to do a caravan on major schools
Right.
to explain our victory in UCLOS, to explain our entitlement sa West Philippine Sea, no? At other activities, no? Gagawa sila ng animation, no? 3 minutes animation, West Philippine Sea UCLOS for beginners, na hindi pa
Right.
nagawa before. So, maraming moving parts, yung tahimik na nangyayari ngayon. Meron, kung alam mo, last week, nagkaroon ng rally nationwide ang Reform the Armed Forces Movement sa Chinese Embassy. No?
Oh, wow.
These are ex-soldiers, no?
Honasan people. This is
Yung
Honasan.
Magdalo, gusto sumama ngayon dito sa koalisyon ng ate nito, nila Risa. Yung One Sambayanan ay nagkukan din sila ngayon, no? They're trying to link up with this emerging coalition. Tapos may mga group ng mga yacht owners, catamaran owners, na gustong sumama doon sa convoy ng fishermen. It's beginning to look like a Dunkirk project going to a Ayungin. So, yung mga yan will hopefully create not only a critical mass of Filipinos na nauunawaan itong issue na ito, unlike in the past. Kung hindi pwedeng magkaroon ng isang sustained effort na hindi lang tayo dependent sa EDCA, hindi lang tayo dependent sa military exercises.
Yeah.
Magkaroon talaga ng organizing, magkaroon talaga ng education movement, magkaroon talaga ng series of actions, no, mostly cultural, no, to unite the Filipino, no, on the issue of the West Philippine Sea, on UNCLOS, on Chinese aggression. Para hindi naman tayo puro na lang military exercises, puro na lang EDCA bases, puro na lang exchanges with the West, no? Magkaroon din tayo ng sariling strength. Tingin ko yun yung agenda nitong mga initiator, nitong ate nito movement. Na sa ngayon, nagsisimulang maging popular yung sign. Yung sign is just 3 fingers, W. No? So tingin ko this will be a household sign. No? Tingin ko this is just the start of something beautiful, no? Something not only nationalistic, but something which is sustainable and very progressive. Kaya hindi lang tayo mag-rely sa narrative ng EDCA, hindi lang tayo mag-rely sa narrative ng military exercises, hindi lang tayo mag-rely sa narrative ng emerging Taiwan conflict. No? Magkakaroon tayo ng sariling agenda.
Yeah, I'm speaking of this. I mean, Ronald, essentially we're talking about the whole of nation approach, right? I mean, this cannot be just left to the DFA. This cannot just be left to the Philippine Coast Guard. This cannot be just left to Bongbong Marcos or the whole Tambalaslos drama. This has to be a whole of nation approach. So in that sense, we're mainstreaming something that should be dear to all of us, no? And just to be clear about it, yung mga Bakery Forum analysis na, 7% lang naman nagsabi na urgent yung West Philippine Sea. That doesn't mean that 7% only care about West Philippine Sea. That's quite a dumb spin, right? Because that just means it's not, they're concerned today and tomorrow morning. That doesn't mean they don't care, right? So doon mo makikita talaga na medyo pre-barangay level pa rin yung mga analyst ng China dito.
But that's also partly true dahil hindi ganun karami nakakaunawa sa ating UNCLOS victory.
Right.
Diba? Hindi ganun karami kaya nakikita natin yung contradiction na napakaraming Pinoy ang critical sa China against Chinese aggression pero popular pa rin si Digong na clearly pro-China. So meron pa rin dysfunction di ba? Ang kulang diyan is the politicalization, the education, the explanation. Kaya maganda na gagawa sila ng animation, cartoons about the West Philippine Sea na 2 to 3 minutes. Dahil beyond that, wala na manonood.
Yeah, and then yung 2 to 3 minutes, isa-slice din nila katulad ng ginagawa natin. Sinislice nila. Now, to close on this note, I mean, I have, of course, another show program where, I interview people. Hindi ko pa na-interview yung Chinese and American ambassador. Yung Chinese parang wag na lang. I'll pass on that. So yung American ambassador quite soon. Pero na-interview ko yung mga ibang ambassadors, no? India, France, Britain, Ireland. Ang dami ko na-interview. And to be honest, ang feeling ko, ang dami natin pwedeng aasahan na partners na hindi dating colonial master natin, na hindi superpower na gusto lang nila their way or highway. Yung mga middle power na medyo ka-level natin, medyo kaya natin kausapin at the same level wavelength, pwede maging very beneficial sa akin. I mean, sa atin, no? I mean, sa atin. In a sense that, I mean, we can get, I mean, the French are offering submarines, no? The British are offering all sorts of intelligence and training. The Koreans and Japanese are offering us maritime security, coast guard capability. The Indians are giving us BrahMos supersonic missile. And then the Indonesians and Malaysians want to have more naval exercises with us. The Singaporeans are also offering us more surveillance. So actually, ang dami natin options eh. It's a huge menu. So it's not like just two elephants and we're a grass. There's like two elephants, there's three zebras, there's a lion, there's a tiger. Like it's a zoo. It's an interesting zoo with many options. So I think this idea of pro-China, Amboy, China boy, it's dumb because it's a buffet, right? It's a la carte. I call it. Let's call it. It's an a la carte diplomacy. We can do a la carte diplomacy and go whichever way we want, right? So I just feel there's so much more we can do, and this is really my approach. Kaya yung mga bobo na nagtawag na amboy amboy, like you don't know what you're talking about, right? I'll slap these people around, no? Kasi kahapon nasa Singapore ako, binash-bash ko yung mga nandun sa China and Singapore, no? Like, kawawa sila sa akin. But I made sure I don't violate laws in Singapore. And na-shock sila, as in they were shocked. Kasi, pag ako binabash kita sa Twitter, all my followers will bash you after me. So they're like locking their accounts, di ba? Tapos sabi ko, baka gusto mo itag ko yung mga kaibigan mo dito sa Manila na Bakery Forum para tulungan ka. You know what? Kasi the script is exactly the same. But anyway, let's close this episode because I think it sets the tone for our next episode, which is, I think the Philippines has to also play a greater role as one of the leaders in the developing world, in the global south, in the ASEAN. And President Marcos Jr., surprise, surprise, is going to be on travel soon again, very soon. But I think this one makes sense. He's going to Saudi Arabia, which is not too far from where the major conflict of the moment is happening, and it's going to be an ASEAN Gulf Arab countries interaction. I think it's a perfect time for Southeast Asia and West Asia to come and talk together. So we'll have a separate episode on that. That one is going to be much more serious and intense. So don't expect na R&R mode all the time. But thank you very much again, Secretary Llamas, for this fascinating discussion.
Thank you.
Salamat. Okay, let's do this last one. Okay, here we are. President Marcos Jr. on his nth travel. But in fairness, I am with him on this one. I'm not sure about the Grand Prix. I was just in Singapore the other day and medyo half jokingly na yung mga iba na regular customer na nila si Bongbong Marcos every year. I said, don't take that for granted. Mas type pa niya siguro yung Monaco kasi Singapore is high level but there's even higher than Singapore. But anyway, he's going now to a country which is even wealthier than Singapore, and that's letter S also, and that's Saudi Arabia. But obviously Saudi Arabia right now is a very, very important country because it's becoming a very active geopolitical player. Not long ago, we were hearing about even talks potentially between Saudi Arabia and Israel for normalization, which could have become a political earthquake, a geopolitical earthquake. But all of that is obviously out of the window. Now, the last time we talked, Secretary Llamas, it was freshly out of the horrible massacres and that even claimed the lives of some of our kababayans by militant groups who burst into Israel. But as we talk right now, thousands of civilians have been killed in Gaza, including a lot of children. And words like war crimes are coming out. You know, even inside Israel, people are attacking Netanyahu. I mean, suddenly European Union, Norway, Ireland are talking more critically. So the mood has dramatically changed just in a week because the response to the attacks on Israel last week, for many people, is not proportionate at all. And for some people, it has way crossed the line. So you have China, Vietnam, Russia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Turkey, Brazil, many of these countries coming out and emphasizing the rights of the Palestinian people, the need for a just peace. So with all of that happening, a part of me is wondering, nasaan bang Pilipinas? Because obviously, Pilipinas malapit sa Amerika. President Marcos met the envoy from Israel. Dahil namatay, of course, yung mga kababayan natin, maraming galit mga Pilipino. I completely understand that. My understanding also is that maybe this is time for the Philippines also to listen to the rest of the global south and look at it from a bigger picture, which is if we want to protect the interests of OFWs, if we want to be one of the pillars of the global south, we have to have a balanced approach which is beyond just tit for tat, but looks at a just, lasting solution to the Palestine Arab-Israeli conflict, right? I mean, and my sense is sana President Marcos Jr. will step up the diplomatic game as he goes to Riyadh, because his father, right? I mean, you and I are not fan of Marcos Sr. when it comes to human rights and economy, but his father was a global South leader, right? If you look at his speeches in the Afro Asia summits, he was one of the founders of ASEAN. I was just talking to my Singaporean friends the other day, and you know what my Singaporean friends were telling me, Ronald? They were saying, for a long time, we Singaporeans had to punch well above our weight because medyo malabo yung mga kasabay natin. Pero now, as Indonesia comes into form, becomes a major power, is speaking out, and they're hoping Philippines also steps up because Singapore is also going through its transition right now. There could be a new leader, new prime minister soon. So parang sinasabi nila, wag na kayo masyadong umasa sa amin. Maliit lang kaming bansa. We're just a city-state. We cannot carry the water. So actually, they feel embarrassed when everyone is expecting Singapore. So he was asking me, kamusta naman kayo dyan sa Pilipinas? And I was saying, actually, in theory, Marcos Jr. could continue his father's legacy on one thing good, and that one thing good is on foreign policy, including itong leadership within the global South. How so, Ronald, diba? I mean, this is not the conversation you usually hear in Philippines, right? I mean, this is something very different. This is a very global Filipino way of thinking about it. So I wanted to get your point of view on this.
Well, I was able to visit Israel and Palestine several times. As a guest of the former Prime Minister Shimon Peres, which was the leader of the Labour Party of Israel, and as a guest of Fatah, the party of Yasser Arafat.
In West Bank, where there is no Hamas, just to be clear. So because people think Hamas is everywhere. Hamas is just in Gaza.
No.
West Bank is
There's
under
a lot of different groups in Palestine.
Exactly. That's people forget. Everyone says
So,
Hamas. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was there several times. I even met Arafat in Lisbon in 1999. So, may kaunti akong insights dun sa nangyayari doon, no? Even way before the present dynamics. No? Yesterday, I attended a forum about the issue of Gaza, organized by Centro, a trade union center. Ang speaker nila ay si Marie ng Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, the new resident,
Right.
Who lived and worked
Used to
in
be there,
Israel,
in Tel Aviv, I think,
for several years. So, talagang hirap eh. Hirap na, dahil una, this is historical. No?
Right.
And to a great extent, it's not directly the fault of the Israelis and the Palestinians. No? It's about old colonizers.
Britain,
like
UK.
like the British.
Yeah,
which
talagang kasalanan nila to.
divided the Middle East, into unsustainable countries, which to a great extent are the roots of the present crisis, the present conflicts in most of the Middle East right now, including.
And of course, Ronald, sorry.
Pakistan.
Let's just be clear. So the British messed it up big time, just like they did in India and the whole India-Pakistan again. But also the Holocaust with Nazi Germany. So Europe has a lot of historical responsibility for this mess that our Jewish and Muslim and Christian brothers, Christian by the way, because they're Palestinians or Christians too, but people forget, right? So in a way, this is a kind of everyone is a victim of the colonial legacy also here and the horrible Holocaust that happened under Nazi Germany. So we have to be clear about, first of all, that because people think this is an ancient war between Muslims and Jews for thousands. That's not true. That's not true. This is a product of Western colonization and Nazi Germany Holocaust. This is why we're in this very difficult situation right now.
Yes. We have to understand that Christianity, Islam, Judaism are all came from the Abrahamic religion or culture, whatever we call it.
Yeah.
So historically, spiritually, they're not supposed to be antagonistic to each other. But was really complicated because of the history, because of the politics, because of the colonizers in the past. So it's not a black and white issue.
Right.
That is why even itong present na gera, ang hirap i-navigate to create a common position. For example, like us progressives. No? Even progressive groups around the world are debating intensely about this. Even your school, Harvard, no, is debating about this intensely. No? At wala akong nakikita na pinakamaayos na positioning. No? Positioning. Huwag natin kalimutan, even prime ministers in Israel ay ina-assassinate ng mga right-wing political forces
Yitzhak
in
Rabin.
Israel.
Yeah,
So
Yitzhak
hindi
Rabin.
mo pwedeng sabihin na yung Israel is a monolithic
It's not.
country with a clear anti-Palestinian sentiment. No? Yun yung kan. At ikalawa ay medyo naging complicated for us because we have 50 to 100,000 Filipino overseas workers there. No? Na in varying degrees, no, are very welcome to the Israelis at medyo galit yung mga Palestinians for allegedly taking their jobs, no, nung sila ay pinaalis sa kanilang mga trabaho. So nagkakaroon ng nadadagdagan yung complication, no, for us Filipinos, not only between Palestine and Israel, no. Tingin ko definitely we have to condemn the attack of Hamas on civilian populations. No? The inhumanity done to babies.
There's no debate, right? We're against any indiscriminate,
Yeah.
deliberate violence against civilians. I think there's no debate about that, right? Just to be clear, because there are a lot of dumb people out.
With us, but even some of our members in the progressive movement here, no, ay hindi, para sa kanila, parang they've never mentioned the attack of Hamas on kibbutz, on the concert, no? Parang everything dito ay kasalanan ng Israel, no?
I mean, Ronan, namatay yung mga kababayan natin. We cannot, namatay yung mga kababayan natin. We cannot, you know, I'm saying, bilang Pilipino,
Hindi ko na sila babanggitin.
Wag na tayo pumunta dun.
Mga political organizations here, kung babasahin mo yung statement nila, no mention of the attack. No mention of the barbarity done to the women, no, to the children, to the babies, no. Walang kahit anong meron. At the same time, yung iba natin namang mga kaibigan, no, ay parang Israel is the only victim. Israel is the only victim.
And like Palestinian lives are not equal human life. Like they're not, like if when I post something about Palestinian children and all, suddenly nagwawalang iba. And my point is like, wait, so mali to point out that Palestinians are also human beings and that their plight should not be forgotten. I mean, that's horrible. That's unacceptable.
I saw firsthand how Palestinians were treated in the wall when they entered the wall. Talagang
this is West Bank, right? This is West Bank, not Gaza. Walang Hamas doon. Just to be clear. Exactly.
Meron din, but not that big. No, meron din, no? Yung collective punishment sa Gaza at sa West Bank, yung pag merong isa na na-involve sa attack on Israel, buong pamilya i-evict at wawasakin yung bahay, yung ganong klaseng collective punishment. That is what is happening now in Gaza. That is collective punishment on a bigger scale. Diba? Kaya very delicate yung positioning. I think we have to condemn Hamas, no? But we also have to criticize and condemn yung ginagawa ngayon ng Israel dun sa civilian population ng Gaza. There was even this very tragic story of one family na nakinig dun sa call for evacuation ng Israel. Pumunta sila allegedly doon sa safe area at namatay yung buong pamilya, 20 of them, no, one big family, no, because they obeyed Israel to evacuate. They did. At nung pumunta sila doon sa allegedly safe zone, all of them died.
You mean from north to south, right? From north to south.
Yeah. So, ito ay dapat talaga i-document, ito ay dapat talaga isa-isahin, no? Dahil it's not a simple issue. It is collective punishment on a grander scale. And you have our ex-president saying that Netanyahu should transform Gaza into the biggest cemetery in the world. Did you you hear that? Did you hear
Yes, that's
your
why I
idol?
missed
Yeah.
his other statement on West Philippine Sea and giving the
Yeah.
water and all. Kasi parang I was so shocked by that. I mean, not shocked because I
Yeah.
don't shocked in a sense that I mean, isn't this the president who's supposed to talk about Muslim, Christian unity, and
Yes.
he
But
said,
he's a
"I'm the first
psychopath.
moral president." Yeah, I mean, that just tells you this guy was not fit to
Yeah.
be the president. I
We
don't think you
elected the
even
psychopath.
he's not fit to be the president. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
he's not fit to be the president. But the mistake happened. What can we do? But sana we learn our lessons and move
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
It just tells you how out of touch he is. No, for someone who's
Yeah.
supposed to be anti-West and all of that,
Yeah.
look at statements of his own idols or bosses
Yeah.
in China. China's position is absolutely clear. Let me read what China has said on this, no? Kasi
Yeah.
I just had an article on that. Kasi I just siguro si Tatay Digong sana nag-clear siya dun sa mga amo niya, no? Bago siya nagsalita kasi nagkakalat-kalat na naman siya dito. I mean, yung China, very clear sila na they're friends of both Palestine and Israel, but the root cause of the problem should not be forgotten. This is both Wang Yi, right? Both their foreign minister and also yung special envoy nila sa I'm just trying to bring out the exact quote, no? Para lang si Tatay mukhang hindi nagre-research. Ito yung sinabi ni Zhai Jun, who's the Chinese special envoy on the Middle East. Ito yung sinabi niya. As a friend to both Israel and Palestine, what we hope to see is the two countries living together in peace. The key to achieving that lies in the realization of the two-state solution and establishment of independent state of Palestine. More interestingly is Chinese Wang Yi, who had a conversation with the Saudi Arabian counterpart just last week, and he said China believes that the historical injustices against Palestine have lasted for more than half a century and cannot go on. Accordingly, he said China stands ready to work with Saudi Arabia and Arab countries to continue supporting the Palestinians' just cause of restoring their national rights. Mukhang yung kanilang bata sa Pilipinas ay hindi updated dun sa position ng kanilang amo. So that's how out of touch he is. Because China right now is the one championing the rights of the Palestinian people. And then yung bata nila, yung barangay chairman dyan, kung ano nang pinagsasabi, nagkakalat-kalat dyan, di ba?
At least pumayag na ibigay yung tubig. Na. Huwag lang yung isda.
Wag natin po, medyo seryoso pa tayo, Ronald. Balikan natin yan. I just alam mo, speaking of collective punishment, it's like dahil ganito yung presidente mo dati, dahil digong ang presidente mo, lahat tayo papunish ng mundo. Sasabihin nila, lahat ng Pinoy katulad niya. You see, that's how stupid collective punishment can become, right? Like, because may 16 million na bumoto kay Digong, yung 80 million na hindi bumoto are naturally responsible for everything that tatay does. That's a form of collective punishment, right? Like, so that's the logic how it operates. So, but going back,
ko, Richard, what we can do, we can unite most of the progressive movement. Halimbawa, on the issue of a humanitarian corridor.
Right.
Diba?
Right.
Tingin ko kahapon, may debate na doon sa paggamit ng salitang terror. No?
Mm-hmm.
Even that is divisive. No? Even yung two-state solution is no longer viable, no? As a framework. No? Yun yung, dahil Hamas has rejected that. And Fatah is so weak.
Yeah, they're not in a position to even negotiate. Yeah.
To be of significance. So, medyo yung two-state solution na pareho nang ni-reject. No? At even marami sa Palestinian ay tinawag na traitor si Arafat because of that two-state solution. No? Kaya hindi ko alam kung ano yung
the whole Oslo Accords and everything. Actually, kapon
ano
with
yun yung framework?
Yeah.
No? Ano yun yung framework for at least to start the talks? No? Yun yung hindi mahanap dun sa dalawang forum na inattendan ko this past few days. No?
Grabe,
na kasama rin ako dun sa discussion sa Progressive Alliance. No? Hirap na hirap din. Because the Progressive Alliance have 2 members from Israel and 2 members from Palestine. No? Yun yung, kaya, hindi sila, hanggang ngayon, walang posisyon ang Progressive Alliance about this.
Yeah, Rhoda, I think you and I have correctly discussed how the left and progressives have to figure out how to deal with the 21st century, because I think some people are still stuck in the 20th century and whataboutism. Our position is neither nor, no? Two wrongs don't make it right. So categorically we're against deliberate attack on any civilian. You're Jew, you're Christian, Muslims. I don't care. It's wrong. Okay. So I think that's what you and I are standing. That's why we can have this conversation. Because if your position was different, mag-aaway talaga tayo dito. But friendly, in a friendly way, as friendly as I can get. Although you can say I'm passionate about this issue on many levels. No, but going back to this, let's talk about the Philippine government, right? We have millions of Filipinos in the Persian Gulf region, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, etc. We have thousands of Filipinos from Lebanon to Syria, despite everything, Jordan, and the fear is this could spread. If I mean, I'm in Malaysia right now, Ronald, no? The emotions is very strong. In fact, nung pauwi ako sa Singapore, yung driver ng taxi was Malaysian Singaporean, and he was watching Al Jazeera, which was showing the bias of the media and all of that. And I had to reassure him, don't worry, I understand where, kasi parang he was wondering baka, I'm the Western guy or something. I had to reassure him I'm not Western, right? So I can see how this resonates. And we had the leader of prayers in Saudi Arabia, I think Mecca, who was crying when he was discussing. I mean, this is a strong emotional issue for more than 1 billion Muslims around the world. So no matter how friendly governments in, I don't know, Morocco or whatever want to be with Israel, on the streets tensions are building up. People are asking for response, no? And this is, the more civilians also die in Gaza, more than 2,000 already based on some reports, the more they'll be called for something drastic to be done. And I'm worried about the situation. And meron tayong millions of Filipinos in the Middle East, a lot of them in the Arab world, right? So if this spreads, let's say Hezbollah joins from the north, and next thing you know, if in Jordan, the Palestinians, I mean, half of population of Jordan are Palestinians, right? I mean, this can get, and then there's the West Bank. I mean, my God, this can get really out of control. I don't want to be panicky about this, but as someone who understands the Middle East, has written a book on the region, follows it, this can get out of control. So
Richard, I'm intensely watching and observing Hezbollah, because Hezbollah,
they're the powerful one. They're powerful.
Definitely much stronger than Hamas.
Yeah.
More well armed than Hamas. More rockets. No, I think they even have real missiles.
Yeah.
Not just the homemade ones.
And they beat
Hamas,
Israel
no?
in 2006.
And they're having skirmishes with Israel, and they're so silent, as if they're preparing for something.
Yeah,
No,
it's
they're
very,
more scary
when they're silent, exactly. Like yun nga eh.
Yeah.
Yun nga eh. Actually, if they were just saying things like, okay, but when people go silent, that's where I get scared,
Yeah.
right? Because the Hamas one were silent too before the horrible
Yes,
things
yes.
happened.
Too silent.
I
That's why sa akin, from my vantage point,
yeah.
Hezbollah is the trigger for a bigger Middle East.
It's gonna be it's gonna be a major all around.
Yeah.
Everyone is gonna be involved, so it's gonna get really, really scary. And then you could have a
Yeah.
situation whereby governments in Arab world are gonna stand on one way, but the people are gonna be on the other way. Then that's also a crazy situation, right? Now,
And we have 3 to 4 million Filipinos in depending on how you count them, in the
exactly,
Middle East.
exactly. So, and this is also where our oil and gas comes from. So if you care about inflation in the Philippines,